The guy that I'm dating is a lot nicer than my ex. My nervous system feels safe around him, but I still kind of feel like we're a situationship and I don't know where we stand. Does this sound familiar? My name is Bethany Dotson. I am a relationship coach and a trauma sensitive somatic therapist for high achieving, single, successful women who are over the age of 40, who have left a narcissistic relationship or marriage, and who still feel stuck in patterns like people pleasing, dating the wrong type of person, avoiding dating, always like they're doing everything right to attract a better quality partner and to be a better woman, but inside they still feel stuck and unfulfilled. And today I want to talk about a very common pattern that happens in the dating world as you continue evolving in your healing journey. And this is the pattern of attracting somebody who is nicer than your ex. They're not outwardly abusive or even abusive at all, but they are still inconsistent. They are still unavailable. They might live far away. They might have a lot of things going on in their life that prevents them from giving you the attention that and the consistency that you would rather have. And I want to talk about why this is happening for you, even though you've done everything right and you've checked all of the boxes on your healing so far. I want to talk about the two common mistakes that are keeping you here. And I want to talk about how you can start correcting that pattern so that you're not outsourcing your certainty or your feeling of belonging or validation to someone else. Because the biggest the problem that continues to happen after women leave toxic relationships is this pattern of codependency, basing their feelings and their emotional state and their worth off of what somebody else is doing. And this can be very slippery in the walls of a romantic relationship, especially if romantic relationships have burned you in the past. So let's get right into it. Maybe you're dating somebody or you have dated somebody after a narcissistic marriage, and that person in many, many ways was so much better than your ex. They made you feel safe some of the time. They had qualities that you wanted that your ex didn't have. They were able to communicate through challenges whenever you brought a problem to them. They were open, willing to sit down with you, hash it out, whereas your ex probably would have shut down or blamed everything on you. So, in many ways, the person that you met after was a lot better. And at the same time, there were also a lot of inconsistencies. So maybe they weren't able to tell you, I love you. Maybe they weren't able to have the defining the relationship conversation, or maybe whenever you approached defining the relationship, their answers were vague or, well, we're just taking things really, really slow right now. Maybe there's a lot increasingly long lag times between communication. So you have something that's good and then something that's also inconsistent. The reason that you're finding yourself here again is because this pattern of inconsistent affection, love is what your nervous system recognizes as relationship. This pattern of, I'm always feeling on edge. I'm not sure. Are they really into this fully? Or am I the one? Or are they not? Am I overthinking things? This pattern of anxiety, this pattern of, I'm not really sure. That is what your nervous system and your brain recognize as relationship material. This person might be a slightly improved version than what you exited with your ex, but it's still the same pattern. And when I've worked with women, the healing evolution I often see happen is that they will attract people who are in many ways better than their ex, but they're still having and co-creating this inconsistent pattern where they feel like they're chasing, they feel like they're uncertain, that they're not really sure where they stand. They get into a lot of situationships. So the first reason you're here is because this type of a relationship dynamic, even though it's uncomfortable for you and you don't like it, subconsciously, it's what you recognize as familiar. And it's what your nervous system this feeling of on edge, this feeling of like, oh my God, no, I don't really know. Are they, aren't they? This ruminating when you're not speaking to that person, this analyzing, that is this questioning. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. Sometimes you don't know where you stand. This like flip flopping back and forth is a pattern that keeps your nervous system jacked up. And that's familiar for you. The second reason, primary reason that this happens is that if you have a pattern of inconsistent affection, or maybe you grew up in a childhood where your feelings were invalidated, you had an emotionally absent or physically absent parent, you had abandonment issues, you subconsciously take on a belief or beliefs that I'm unlovable. I have to prove and work hard to prove that I am lovable. I'm unlovable. I believe I'm unlovable. Therefore, I have to work harder at proving and getting people to see and getting people to uh, recognize that I am lovable. So sorry. Anyway, when you grow up in this environment, you're left with this like subconscious emotional deficit. It's a void. It's a feeling of needing somebody out here to fill up the hole of unlovability inside. And whenever you are looking out here for somebody to take away that feeling of uncertainty or that feeling of unlovability or the fear that you might be unlovable, even if you're over 40, even if you're past 50 or 60, that pattern still lives on. So those are the two main reasons that you're still here. Number one, it's familiar. And number two, the pattern of working hard or proving that you're lovable to stop feeling unlovable is still going on within you. And it has nothing to do with the people or whoever you're dating or your ex. Because you went into relationships with this pattern, you're going to attract somebody who is a mirror for that pattern. For example, if you inherently had a subconscious belief that I'm unlovable because you didn't get the attention or the affection that you wanted as a child, you carry that belief of I'm unlovable with you well into your adult life. And so subconsciously, you're sitting here believing I'm unlovable. You probably will become a workaholic. You'll probably double major in college. You'll burn yourself out in your career, and you'll continuously date partners who make you question whether you're lovable. And that is because you have this belief, unlovable, going on in your subconscious that acts like a radio signal. And it pulls in people and situations and circumstances in your life that mirror back your radio signal of I'm unlovable. So that's why the two biggest mistakes that I see women make who they've gone to therapy, they've read all about the narcissist, they've taken 5 years off of dating, they've gotten a better career, their bank account is full, they've paid off all their debt, they live in a beautiful home in a great zip code, they have everything going for them. And yet their love lives are really unsatisfactory and they continue to settle. The two biggest mistakes that I see women make when they enter a new dating relationship is they continue to outsource the certainty of the relationship to the other person, to her partner. For example, I had a client who was talking recently about we were uncovering the pattern in her current relationship where she has increasing feelings of uncertainty, and she'll sit with it and she'll think about it for a while and she'll broach the conversation and they'll have a conversation, and then her partner says something that appeases her uncertainty, and then temporarily that uncertainty goes down, but the actions continue to happen that produce that uncertainty. So more uncertainty happens, more uncertainty happens. She brings it up. Her partner goes, oh, no, 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 no. She calms down, and then the pattern starts all over again. And that's been going on for months. So what happens when you look to your partner for validation of where you stand in the relationship or certainty? Are we on solid footing? Are we both headed in the right direction? When you're looking outside of yourself for that certainty and you're outsourcing it to your partner, you are always going to continue feeling uncertain because it's not the other person's job to give you certainty. It is your job to give you certainty. I'm going to talk about how to do that in just a second. When you outsource your certainty to the other person, what you're essentially doing is giving them all of the power, or at least too much power. And in another sense, you're putting too much pressure on that person to fill an empty void or an empty vat of uncertainty in you. And what this does for the relationship dynamic is that for both people, it produces resentment. And resentment is ultimately what kills relationships and what creates increasing amounts of distance. So the first mistake that will keep you in settling for breadcrumbs, settling for a lot of inconsistent partners, settling for nicer versions of your ex, but you're still not getting what you want. It's like the same unfamiliar, I don't know where I stand, I'm working too hard for this type of a thing, is that you're outsourcing the certainty of that relationship to them and you're not focusing on yourself. The second mistake that I see is that women will have intuitive hits. Their body will get a signal that something doesn't feel right for them in that relationship. And this usually starts happening within the first 6 months of dating and getting to knowing somebody. They start sensing red flags. And these might not be overt red flags like I've got a DUI charge, or my children, I don't have custody of my children because I physically assaulted my ex-wife. Nothing major like that, but it's more inconsistent behavior. They say they're going to call you at this time on this day, and then you don't hear from them for 4 days later. Or they ask you out for dinner on Saturday, but then Friday night they say, hey, so we're getting together Tuesday, right? Little things that start to breed this like question. The second mistake that I see women making is that they begin gaslighting themselves here. They begin telling themselves, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm asking too much too soon. They start shrinking their needs and they start dimming their lights to be more likable, to be more accepting. They don't want to come across as crazy. They don't want to come across as needy. So they start gaslighting themselves and ignoring their own needs and self-abandoning early in the relationship. And these two mistakes, deferring the certainty to another person and then gaslighting yourself, these two go hand in hand. So you get an intuitive hit that this doesn't sit well with me, but instead of communicating about it up front, you start telling yourself a story. I don't want to be the one to bring this up. What if I come across as too needy? What if I'm overreacting? And you start dimming your light. And then to compensate, or the thing that is going to bring your light back up again is if they do something different to bring you that certainty. And this whole pattern of gaslighting yourself and looking to the other person for a certainty is not sustainable at all. It's like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds and I'm going to do it in 5 days and I'm going to starve myself and only drink water. I mean, of course, if you're into fasting, that's, healthy on some level. But if we look at that, that's not sustainable in the long run. You're probably doing more damage. And this is the same pattern that happens in these relationships. So those are the two mistakes that are going to continue that you're doing that are going to continue contributing to your pattern of attracting somebody nicer than your ex, but they're still inconsistent. It's familiar for you, this idea or this subconscious programming of needing to prove that you're lovable and work hard, and this feeling of like, I'm anxious, I don't really know where I stand. That is familiar for you, and you'll what is the word that I'm looking for? You're going to continue to play that out if you look to the other person for certainty and if you continue to gaslight your own needs and your own signals from your body. So where does certainty come from? The first thing that I want to say the first thing is that in even healthy relationships that are secure and that there's open communication, even in the healthiest of relationships, there's always going to be an element of uncertainty. That said, it's never the person that you're with, it's never their job to give you certainty. Certainty comes from within. And that starts with number one, having a calm nervous system, learning how to emotionally regulate every single day. If you're still living in fight or flight and you're burning yourself out in your career and you're resentful all of the time and you don't feel connected with your relationships, the chances are you're still living in a state of fight or flight. So that's the first thing that needs to be corrected is getting out of fight or flight and retraining your brain and your body to be in a state of calm, in a state of receptivity, in a state of openness, in a state of trust, in a state of love, in a state of gratitude, in a state of happiness as your new baseline, not stress, anxiety, anger, fear, shame, whatever. The second thing is with if and when you're dating somebody new and you feel uncertain is direct communication, which means simply directly communicating how you feel. And that sounds really simple on the surface, but so many people, because of their own hidden belief systems of I'm unlovable or their abandonment anxiety, they're afraid of rejection, having that direct conversation about how you feel requires being vulnerable. It requires the risk, facing the risk that that person could reject you in some way. It means facing the risk that you could lose out on the relationship that you've built so far because they're not willing, they're not aligned with what you really need. And then finally, direct communication, directly communicating what you need. But I should go back a step because before you even can direct communicate. So first of all, calm nervous system, getting out of fight or flight. If you're living in fight or flight, if you're still thinking or ruminating about your ex, you were living in fight or flight, and we have to correct that. Second thing before direct communication is being extremely, extremely clear on what you want out of a relationship. So many people exit a long-term marriage where their partner had narcissistic traits, and naturally, they have no idea what they want. The only thing that they do know is that they don't want to be alone. They don't want to get to 55 or 65 and not have anybody in their life. And they know that they don't want somebody who is verbally abusive or who is going to guilt trip them about spending money. They know more about what they don't want, but they haven't clearly defined what they do want. And a lot of the time, the reason they don't know what they truly want is because subconsciously they don't believe they can have it. They feel like they're unworthy of it, and therefore they don't give themselves permission to fully explore. And when they do fully explore, they start hearing the inner critic inside telling them, yeah, right, that's not going to really happen. And then they stop. They don't explore that any further. So calm nervous system, learning how to emotionally regulate is step number one. Step number two is getting very, very, very clear about what you want. And even when you get really clear about what you want, that's still not a guarantee. The clarity also comes when you're dating and dating people who are not aligned. Because when you date, I don't even want to say the wrong people because they're right for you in that moment. When you're dating people that are misaligned for you, you learn even more clarity about what you do want. So you're going to learn and gain clarity by being in the process. You're not going to get everything right sitting on the sidelines and making a vision board. You get more experience, more clarity, more certainty, more trust in yourself by actually being in the game. And then finally, when somebody says something or more appropriately doesn't say anything, or there's inconsistency and you start to feel your body signaling to you, I don't know about this. Instead of gaslighting yourself or playing the wait and see, well, let me wait a few months and see how this plays out. The best strategy is directly communicating how you feel. So those things are easy to take in, but they're very hard to practice in real time and in your own life. And listening to something like this will give you a lot of insights, but insights alone, free advice, if you will, isn't going to be the thing that's going to transform your dating patterns. If you are ready to transform your dating patterns and you're ready for a proven plan that is evidence-based, meaning it's been shown in research to be effective for women, even more effective Then talk therapy for women who've experienced emotional abuse, manipulation, gaslighting. And also, if you're in the therapy world, this is also a more effective method than DBT. DBT is used for people who have borderline personality disorder, which is basically relationship trauma. It's a deep, deep fear of being rejected. And that deep fear of rejection causes a lot of manipulative behaviors to prevent being rejected. And those manipulative behaviors can also evolve into abuse. So, this is more effective than talk therapy and DBT. And this is a system that's going to help you. Step number one, get out of fight or flight, retrain your brain and your body. Step two, get super clear on what you want. And then step three, begin showing up differently in your relationships, not just in dating or romantic relationships, but in all of your relationships so that you no longer outsource your certainty. You're no longer subconsciously recreating the same daddy issues that you had, but at 45 or 55 or 65, you're showing up as a whole, complete woman who loves herself, who prioritizes herself, but who also doesn't have walls and who's like, I don't need a man. This is about helping you become the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, and then attracting somebody on that same level and getting into the early parts of dating with that person and making sure that you don't make the same mistakes that you've made for the past 30 or 40 years of your life. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can first of all watch my free masterclass, Break This Cycle. You can go to bethanydotson.com/replay. I will drop the link below. Or if you're ready to have a free 1 hour breakthrough session to explore if we are a good fit to work together, you can go to bethanydotson.com/talk and find a space on my calendar and complete the questionnaire. That call is for women who have been out of a marriage or relationship for some time, several months to several years. They consider themselves successful. They're business owners. They are executives. They have a great career. They're probably burning out in their career because they're still working too hard or operating from the belief system that I'm unlovable and I need to overcompensate for that by working hard and proving that I'm worthy and lovable. You've already had therapy. You've probably tried dating, but you're getting a lot of disappointment. You're repeating the same patterns and you don't know what's standing in your way. What's standing in your way is yourself, but you're ready to have an honest conversation. You're ready to uncover the blocks that are keeping you stuck, and you're ready for a healthy relationship with you and a healthy relationship with other people. bethanydotson.com/talk, and we will have a deep dive conversation to get you to the next steps in your journey, whether that's here with us or something else. Take care, and I will see you in the next episode.